Hello and welcome to another edition of my match preview show here on the channel. And next up for Blues is a home game against Stoke City, and the reverse fixture was one which caused quite a bit of frustration for the Blues fans. But we're about to hear from Lucas talking about Stoke and their form at the moment. So, Lucas, first of all, how are you doing and how's things going covering Stoke for BBC Stoke?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Look, you're asking me at the wrong time because it's not been so fun in the start of the year. Results wise, have been decent, but they've just got so many injuries, which we'll get on to, that it's providing more and more of a headache now, covering them at the moment. And what was a quiet start to January looks like it's picking up steam now as well. So it's interesting. Is it as fun as when the two sides last played each other? Maybe not, but it's never a dull day. To be fair, for any championship side, as you know, Sam.
And the reverse fixture was one which came in September, and it was a 1-0 victory for Stoke, and Lowell scored the winner on that day. And the reason why it caused frustration for Blues fans is because I feel like that was the first game in the Championship where we'd gone back up and we kind of realised, okay, this is now a different level to what we were used to in League One, because we were just speaking then before we hit record and about, the wingers having a field day with Cochrane, and just sort of the way that the game played out. It was just Stoke pretty much dominant the whole way through. So from the reverse fixture to now, what's really changed around the Stoke camp?
Um, so the frustration with Stoke has always been that they've looked really good. They've created a lot of chances. I feel like the game that you guys will have seen in the reverse fixture is a really good example of what Stoke are. They're a mess, like in terms of they're a menace to face against, but they're a mess in terms of that they can't quite get themselves the goals needed. So the wingers are huge attacking threats. Million man off Suber Thomas, and then a signing that they made. It will have been quite recently before the game against yourselves. A guy called Lamine Cisse, who's excellent. He's just come into form as well. He's just really found his feet, really, and he's another, I guess, element that Stoke have got on the flanks and the wings. But the problem has been the end product, and you can't just rely on your wingers to score your goals, although they kind of have with Sorba Thomas. The strikers that Stoke have had all possess some really good qualities, and they're all very good physical strikers. Divine Mubama, I wouldn't be surprised if at one day he's a future England striker because he's got these flashes of brilliance, but it's his first loan, and um, he can be inconsistent with his goal scoring runs. So the thing with Stoke is that they're a really fun team to watch because they don't sit back. They are, especially at home, all guns blazing. They're very good defensively as well. So even when a side comes at you, Stoke have been really good at those last ditch tackles. They've been really good at sort of marking a player out of a goal scoring opportunity. So it's been fun. Of late, it's been frustrating because they had a really bad run end of the year, sort of end of November, start of December. December was a rubbish month. And then they started 2026 up until the game against Middlesbrough, which was for us times recording this last night. They were unbeaten and they hadn't conceded a goal. And this is with a really depleted squad. So lately, this team that's got the backs against the walls, and it's kind of this togetherness that's this band of brothers has been really good to watch. But it's now getting to a point where players aren't really coming back, and they're out for longer than we'd have liked, and more players on top of that are getting injured. So we left the QPR game on Saturday. They drew 0-0, still unbeaten, still hadn't conceded a goal, but we all felt really deflated because Mubon was injured, and you're just a little bit like, is that where this season's going? Like, this is the first time Stoke have been good probably since they got relegated, and we're just having to sort of now see the season potentially fall apart because through no fault of their own, they've just picked up some really freak injuries. So, yeah, I can't complain in terms of watching good football because even when they've not got a huge squad, they're trying their best. I can complain in terms of unlucky at the moment with the amount of injuries they've picked up.
And you're saying about the season and sort of what to expect from between now and May. And the thing is, like Stoke are eighth place, 2 points
Mm.
off the playoffs, and I
Hmm.
feel like there's just that mixture of teams, isn't there, below the playoffs that still believe that they can make it in there. So what you're saying with Stoke at the moment is that injuries may hamper your chances, not so much who you've got, I guess, like as a starting 11. It's more so, what can you do in the January window? Can you get those players back fit?
Yeah, so the squad just looks shattered. I really thought after that Christmas run in December, um, I thought they'd be far out of it, but I feel like they just had the momentum of so many games. They just carried on going. But the QPR game second half, the Middlesbrough game second half, they just looked ran out. Like battery had gone, and the levels they were trying to reach just weren't. They just physically couldn't get there. So it's not a lack of the players not having it, because I think the players are really good. I think they've made some really good signings, and those that they've signed in the last few windows have stepped up as well. Some have refound form, but you're asking a lot of a few players now in what is a really busy period like December, Christmas, January. It's kind of go, go, go. I think all the way up until maybe the March international break. They've got a real handful of games, and there's a lot of midweek matches still. Some rescheduled because of the FA Cup, some that are already there. I just feel like you're asking a lot of the team, and they can't do a lot in January. They've not got the luxury right now of being able to spend, and I think they're sailing quite close to the wind when it comes to sort of the current PSR restrictions. Squad cost ratio, of course, could come into it next year as well. Um, so they can't just go, we've got all these players injured, let's just sign a load of players. They've just not got that luxury. So it's about what they can do in the market, and fingers crossed that this bad luck that they've got doesn't continue. They've made, at the time of us recording, one signing, one confirmed signing. Gavin Bazunu, who played one game in the draw against QPR. We get the injury, the team news into us before the Middlesbrough game. He's injured, and he's out for 6 weeks. So this replacement goalkeeper for Victor Johansson, who's the star goalkeeper, has come in and he's injured. And so we're playing Tommy Simpkin, who's an exciting prospect, but he's 21 and he's not really played any championship football. So yeah, it's a frustrating time because there is ability there and there is potential there, but you're asking a lot of limited resources at the moment.
It's parallels actually with what's happening with Blues at the moment because we've got our injury problems, and I feel like it's because of that sort of festive run of
Mm.
games in December and then January as well, where we've just picked up these knocks and they're just recurring ones as well. So a player will get back and then they'll be out for another 2 to 3 weeks, and then it's just the setbacks. And I feel like once we have our full strength 11, that's when we could really pick up some form. And at the moment, Blues are actually 4 games unbeaten, so like we're getting a little bit of a run going, but it is with limited resources. And we've been pretty active in the January window, but not actually signed anybody that's properly featured yet, apart from Kai Wagner at left back. With Stoke, could there be any signings that come in before the game on Saturday? Because I've seen that you've been linked with Milan Schmidt, a striker from the Eredivisie, and also Raksaki as well.
Yeah, now Milan Schmidt is, I think I'm gonna say that's a goer. Dutch media especially are are very keen on reporting that, and they're very high on reporting that. So from everything that we're hearing, that looks like it's going to happen. If it's done in time for the game against Birmingham, I'd be surprised. But Stoke sort of go quiet for ages, and then all of a sudden, oh, here's a signing. So it might just be a little bit too late in the day for the Birmingham game. Maybe looking more towards next week against Southampton. But he's much needed because just to go off all the injuries that Stoke City have had, and they've had some really key players out injured, some real game changers for Stoke out injured. But most importantly, their three recognised strikers, Divine Mubama, Sam Gallagher, and Robert Bojanic, are all out injured. Uh, Bojanic on New Year's Day suffered a awful collision with with a Hull player and ended up with a dislocated shoulder. Divine Mubama we thought had got a leg break. It looks like it's just ligament damage, but still it's going to be out for some time. Sam Gallagher, I love the guy, and when he's fit, he's excellent, but he's never fit, and you can't rely on him to be fit over a season. He's now out for a little bit. He's a classic example of what you just said about players that come back, play a few games, and then they're out. So they need a striker. So hopefully, if Milan Schmidt does come in, he's exactly what Stoke have kind of scouted for in terms of the sort of strikers, a big, tall, physical presence, and his goal scoring record's is decent for the money that Stoke have got to spend. Again, due to restrictions, they can't go bringing in a £20 million striker. So he could be a bit of a gem. All you can go off is what you see online and the videos that you watch, and all signs point to a good potential striker who's had a bit of glory recently for Go Ahead Eagles, but he's needed. Raksaki, he's been linked with Stoke for most of the window, and we were chatting before, like you say, and he's also been linked with a lot of other Championship clubs. Don't know how close that is, but that looks like something that could happen. And if Stoke can make it work with again how tight they are with restrictions, he's he's a really exciting player. He's not had the best of luck with some of his loan spells recently, but I think I think the people that I know that are Palace fans seem to be really keen on him, and he just needs that breakthrough loan. And the fact that he's had a couple of loans now in the EFL and one in Turkey that was kind of yeah, less said about it the better. I think that might be maybe Nike's breakthrough loan if it comes through at Stoke, and they need that support on the wide flanks because, as we talked about, they do really use their wide players a lot. Lamine Cisse, as I mentioned, come in, looks really good. Million man off. He gave Cochrane a run for his money. I thought it was one of his best performances actually. In a Stoke City shirt, he was that good. And then Sorba Thomas has been excellent, but they just looked knackered in that Borough game. So it's kind of a case of all the help that Stoke can get. And because they don't score a lot, they need those. They need more players to come in, maybe to sort of give them a different outlet and perhaps just a little bit of a freshen up as we sort of reach that sort of that January lull, that midway through the season.
And we've spoken about players, and just to touch on the manager quickly, Mark Robins, someone with plenty of championship experience, came so close to promotion with Coventry, and now he finds himself at Stoke. What do you make of his tenure so far? Because what I've noticed this season, especially, is you said about the defence being solid. There's only, 25 goals conceded. I think only Ipswich have conceded less goals. So it goes to show that they've built a real solid foundation in defence. And would you say it's down to the tactical configuration of Robins?
Yeah, do you know what's annoying is that they had the best defensive record until Ipswich didn't concede for like a load of games in a row, and then Stoke conceded 2 goals, and because of Ipswich's run, they've now lost that best defensive record title for now, which is so annoying. I hope they can get that back 'cause it's quite a nice stat to have. Um, the way that Robbins is a very smart manager because he is a little bit like his old manager in Sir Alex Ferguson. He is the face of it. He's the man manager. There's a bit of a like we say there's like an aura about him when he's in the room because I think he's become such a significant name in EFL culture in the Championship because of what he did at Coventry, because of his time at Coventry, because of his legacy at Coventry, and so there's even just this like this way that he carries himself. I think the players um, have been able to find some sort of self belief, but he also knows what he wants, and then it's on his coaches to help him carry that out. So he's got 2 brilliant coaches as well, assistant managers you'd call them, and James Rowberry, who's also part of the Welsh FA setup and has been a manager in previous times as well. And then Paul Nevin, who's part of the England setup, he was assistant manager to David Moyes at West Ham, so we know the success they had. So he's done really well in recruiting 2 really exciting coaches, and alongside them, they've got Ryan Shawcross, who I think has been credited a lot with um, a big part in Stokes' brilliant defensive record. He's been a bit of I guess, a mentor to Ashley Phillips, who's one of Stokes' best players and a fantastic centre back, boasting the wall, playing really well this year. When he's played at centre back, Ben Wilmot played really well this season. He's been the captain. Ryan Shawcross, just for anyone that doesn't know, is a Stoke City legend. He was a great centre back for all of Stoke's time in the Premier League, and even got called up to England once upon a time as well. Probably could have and should have had, if you're speaking with your Stoke City cap on, a couple more appearances for England too, especially when the defensive options weren't that great during the peak of Ryan's time. I'm surprised he didn't get a couple more call-ups, but I think those pieces of the puzzle that Mark Robbins has expertly put together have created a side that is strong and sturdy defensively, and they're ready for when they are countered. And that happens a lot in the Championship, of course, that sort of that counter pressing football. But Stoke are, especially at home, often on the front foot, and they are able to navigate themselves around tactically against sides that they're facing that are in good form when they're away from home. And the Borough defeat, I think it's important to say because it's a blotch on their record, and there's an L next to their name right now. I think if Stoke had a fitter squad in terms of lack of injuries and not having to just use the same starting 11 that they used on Saturday, then again on Wednesday, they couldn't put fresh legs in because the squad's that depleted. I think you would have seen a different result against Borough. They started the first half really well, and despite how lacking they are in squad depth right now, I think they are still a force to be reckoned with, and I think that's a credit to what the coaches are doing and Mark Robbins at the helm of that as well.
You speak about personnel and depth, just to sort of throw it back to Birmingham and what's happening with us at the moment. A player that
Yeah.
used to play for Stoke, Lewis Kumas, is being relied on quite heavily because of the injuries to Demarai Gray and the absence of Keshi Anderson as well, who's now gone to Portsmouth. So with Kumas, what did you find him to be like as a Stoke player? Because he played 49 games for you. There were quite a lot that were off the bench, but then there was also quite a run of games where he was starting a lot, and he finds himself starting a lot for Birmingham at the moment. And he's been very hit and miss. That's what I'd say. Probably more so miss if you ask the Birmingham fans of what they thought of him. So when Kumas was playing for Stoke, what system suited him the best?
I think the frustration with Kumas is I don't know what his best position is. I don't know if you found that yet. Where's he typically tended to play out of interest? Has it been out wide or has it been up front? He
Yeah,
said
so
he's
he's
covering
been
for
like left
Damari
wing for
Gray.
us because he's
Right.
deputising for Gray at the moment.
Yeah. That was typically where he's put on. Kumas, there's clearly like his debut against West Brom, I want to say. I think this is last season, and I feel like they lost in the end. I think they lost 2-1 at home to West Brom. Um, he was up front because Stoke didn't have any strikers. This seems to be the case with Stoke City a lot, and he was electric. He was really good, and then we didn't really see much of him. Like he was put out on the wing. I don't think he's got the physicality yet. I don't think he's got the meanness as well. I've interviewed him once. And he was a lovely guy, polite, really well mannered. But you kind of need a little bit more from that from your footballers right now. And I think these championship loans are all about um, getting him ready for first team football, where you've got to be a bit more of a menace. So I think that's one of the things I think he's lacking. Is I think he's lacking that killer that killer edge, and I don't just mean sort of finishing. I mean that toughness. I mean that grit, and maybe you could say, and this is a criticism that I hear a lot from footballers about other footballers, is that he's too nice. And my take on Lewis Kumas is maybe he's too nice, very skillful, but can easily be sort of taken off the ball. There's clearly a technical player there, hence why he's come from Liverpool's academy. Like you don't become one of the exciting prospects in Liverpool's academy if you've not got some raw ability and raw talent. But in the Championship, especially, you need to have a little bit more about you. You need to be streetwise. You need to be physically ready for the battle. And I think from my perspective was that Lewis Kumas got bullied a lot, and it was only when he was against sort of I guess, a player that was less ready for the fight than he was, where he could really shine. He had a great game against Cardiff in the FA Cup. It was in the fourth round last season. And eventually Stoke got knocked out on penalties. But Stoke would have lost that game if it wasn't for Lewis Kumas. And that was one of his best games. But you are talking genuinely like 2 or 3 games where you go, Lewis Kumas was great, which is frustrating because, again, he's a really good footballer. And you're nodding your head because I know you've said that you probably had the same thoughts. And Birmingham fans are the same thing. I was surprised he got the loan to Birmingham because at the start of the season there was a lot of talk about what Birmingham were doing and what they could do, and the players that Birmingham were bringing in. I'm like, to me, Lewis Kumas stood out as not that player. When you're bringing in exciting young talents or players with Premier League or top tier top tier history in their time playing, yeah, it's just frustrating. I think that's the best way to put it. I personally think that maybe as a front man and sort of playing the ball into his feet might be a way forward, but I just don't think he's got the I don't think he's got that he's not got that grit about him to play right now week in week out on the flanks. Because it's a tough old league, the Championship, and I think when you're getting tested, I think it's a tough place to be.
Because it's a dilemma for Chris Davis because we've just brought in a new winger, Osman, on loan from Brighton. So it's whether he goes straight into the starting 11 for Kumas or he keeps his place. Because the reason why Kumas has started a lot recently is purely because he's just had to because of the injuries that we've got. So it's whether he sticks with him against his former club and he ends up getting a goal because that happens so often, doesn't it? Where a player returns to their former
Yeah.
club and then scores. So yeah, not sure what's going to happen there. But thanks so much for your time, Lucas. And just quickly give a score prediction of what you think is going to happen in the game, taking everything into account.
You know what? I always ask everyone else this when I do this on the radio, and hate when I get asked it myself because it is really tricky. Because I've got a head and heart thing right now. My heart would say snatch a 1-0 win for Stoke City. My head, and I said this to a friend on the phone earlier, is that because of just how depleted the squad is, and if they don't aren't able to bring in any of the new signings prior to Saturday, which I don't think will happen, I think at the end of a 3 game week, you're asking a lot of these players where a lot of minutes are going to have to be played again. They've got to go again, and unless they get an early goal and hold on to that lead, I could see it maybe being a 1-1 or maybe even like a 1-0 to Birmingham. So I am sort of I've kind of gone on the fence there with either a 1-1 or 1-0 either way, but it'll be that kind of game, I think. Personally,
Mm.
Stoke don't concede a lot of goals, and I just think that their limitations at the moment with the players that they've got is going to be a lot to ask of them. So I'll go on the fence and I'll say 1-1.
You know what? I actually had 1 all written down as well. So we both got the same
Okay, we're on the
prediction.
same page then.
And I was thinking along the same lines where if Stoke sort of lose, they don't lose by much, do they? And I
No.
think regardless, it's going to be a tight game because of the fact that you guys are in eighth place and you've got such a good defensive record. But then again, Lawal is suspended, isn't he, for the game because he got sent off against Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
So that is something to consider as well.
Yeah, the left backs are back, and Bosan's been playing at left back for most of 2026. So Aaron Cresswell's come back from injury. Eric Bokat's come back from injury. I'd suspect that one of those two will play. Bokat's further along in terms of his rehab and sort of game time. Aaron Cresswell's not played yet. He was on the bench against Middlesbrough, but he hasn't played since his injury. So my guess would be Bocat starts, which is good because otherwise I genuinely don't know what they would have done. I've no if they didn't have the left backs available and Bosen then got his sending off, called the game off. I would have wanted to call the game off because their options are scarce.
Well, a lot to consider there, a lot to think about. Thank you so much for your time, Lucas. And just quickly shout out what you're doing on your side of things at the moment for BBC Radio Stoke.
Yeah, well, we cover Stoke City week in, week out, which is obviously a great job to have, especially when, as I say, when they're not as bad as they have been in recent seasons. So, yeah, we have a BBC Sounds page. So if you want to get a little bit of insight into what the managers and the players are saying ahead of the game against Birmingham, then we have a Stoke City page on BBC Sounds. So if you've got the BBC Sounds app or if you've gone online to BBC Sounds and just type Stoke City in the search bar, you can hear all the stuff we do. We have a Stoke City podcast on there as well. So yeah, if you want a little bit of homework and research to do before the game on Saturday, a lot of our stuff is on there.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time, Lucas. And a big game for both teams, both making a charge towards the top six. So let us know in the comments what you're thinking for a score prediction. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, keep right up.